agenda page here shows a little bit of what we're going to be covering, from introduction to some water meter terminology that's commonly used and will be used throughout the presentation. A little bit about the meter history in the city, what the proposed meter replacement program will look like and ultimately cost. And then at the end, as Commissioner indicated, having a question and answer period. So first we'll cover water meter terminology. And first, in a water system, what's most important is a water meter itself, which actually measures the flow and usage of water through every single service connection to every customer, whether it be residential, commercial, industrial, municipal. The water meter essentially could also be called as a cash register of a water system. It's the way that all the water is measured and then billed to each of the customers in the system. What helps transmit the reading of the meter itself to the collection system is what's called a meter transmission unit. That can be seen in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. That MTU, as we call it, transmits readings at certain intervals, which can be read by either a drive-by or fixed network system. What is a fixed network system? Well, that's also used as terminology as what's called an advanced metering infrastructure, which can have a couple different definitions. Essentially what it does is helps collect all the data from the water meters and centralizes it to the DPW office, which allows clerks and staff to analyze, review, and identify usage almost every single day. And that's the type of technology that's available today. So from the time that someone takes a shower in the morning, that usage could be seen and reported the next day at DPW. So there's also two types of this types of AMI system, both cellular and fixed network system. And what we'll be talking tonight mostly is around a fixed network system. Once that data is collected, it's then processed and billed to the customers, which then results in revenue for the water system. In a little more detail here, this meter shown is a Neptune meter. Essentially, it's a positive displacement meter, which is a type of way that the water can be measured. These can be used for both residential and commercial size. They also can be used for irrigation meters and also fire service meters. But the meter that's shown here is a smaller type meter, about a 5/8 inch meter, that is used mostly for residential customers. Now, also associated with meters is the transmission unit. So the meter is what actually records the amount of water that passes through the device. Then the meter transmission unit, or the MTU, will actually take that information of how much water is being used and transmit that to the fixed network system. So the MTUs tend to have batteries that have a lifespan of about 15 to 20 years. Meters have one thing we worry about is the loss of accuracy. And typically speaking, meters have a guaranteed accuracy of about 5 to 10 years, and that's published by the American Water Works Association. And those type of meters, through a testing program, can see if they can last longer than that. So typically, especially with the type of positive displacement meter that's shown, those can last up to 15 years or so, depending if the accuracy meets the standards. And the last meter, we'll talk a little bit about the history next, but the meter last replacement program that we had was back in 2009 with the city. So currently in the city, there is approximately 29,000 meters. And you can see by this slide that we break up a meter by size. Predominantly, the 5/8 inch meters are used for residential or small commercial properties and customers. You can see that that's about 75 to 80% of all meters used, about 17,716 meters. And then the rest from there go to 3/4 inch and 1 inch and larger. Although 5/8 inch meters, residential meters tend to be the predominant size throughout the system, you also have to look at those larger meters because sometimes that tends to be where some of the higher users are on a customer per customer basis. So larger meters are more important to be checking on for accuracy purposes and making sure that they're reporting all the right water use. Included within the water meters by size are about 3,900 irrigation meters. And just for purposes of the council, Currently, the DPW is responsible to the MWA for annual assessments of about $14 million for water and about $22.5 million for sewer, which equates to about $36 million annually, which is offset through revenue collected. A little more here about history. So 2009 was the last time that all meters were replaced through a contract installer. And then in 2012 and 2013, the MTUs were replaced to increase their range to communicate to a new type of reading system. But then you'll see here that in 2018, some of those MTU failures began, and a lot of battery failures are now accumulated. So you can tell by this graph here that starting in September 2018, we had, say, about 1,000 meters or so, or MTUs were failing. And over the last year, especially, we're almost a year to the day of March 21st, that we're getting close to 9,000 meters that have MTU failures. Now, this March, we're up to just over 16,000 MTU failures. And what can happen there is ultimately the DPW has to estimate, in order to send the bills out on time, estimate the water usage looking at past account history. If they did not do that, they'd have to go and visit every single MTU failure location to physically read the meter and then compare that to the last usage to bill accurately, which if they tried to do that, they would not have enough time to get out the bills on time and therefore not be able to connect the revenue necessary to cover the MWA assessments. So estimated reads are increasing, and that leads to a major issue. Coupled with these battery failures, you're also reaching the end of the useful life of the current meters you have as well. So you have two significant reasons to proceed with the proposed meter replacement program, which we'll cover next. So as I mentioned, generally speaking, now with today's technology, both for the way that meters are read, but also the actual meter technology, there's increased accuracy, which, the type of meters that are being proposed can actually measure down to a much lower flow, which will allow you to recognize more revenue and unaccounted for water that you were not measuring before. So it'll allow you to help drop your unaccounted for water percentage as a system. And it'll also give the opportunity to what's called right sizing larger meters. What happens sometimes is for a larger, say, larger building or commercial customer, the meters may have been oversized in the past, or maybe that water usage may have changed for that business or the customer. So this gives us an opportunity to analyze the amount of water that each customer uses and put the right meter in for that customer that's supposed to be there, so that the city is capturing every single amount of water possible through that meter, and you're providing accurate and reliable service to each of your customers. Implementing the fixed network system as well will allow you to input new technology, will allow you to increase your reading and billing efficiency as well. You'll be able to standardize all the meters in the city so that you have a common set of replacement parts and meters on hand, just in case in the future that something goes wrong. As part of the contracted installation program, you'll also be able to locate and fix all illegal or unregistered water connections. I have a little story that I was doing another meter replacement program, and we actually found a laundromat that had 2 service connections instead of 1, but only 1 was being metered. So part of this meter program that we did for another client, we actually found enough revenue to offset almost some of the usage of that customer for almost a year. So it helps you find these things that you haven't been in some of these customers or businesses in many years to work on the meters and the plumbing itself. The Commissioner also mentioned a customer portal, which having the ability for customers to monitor, track, and identify how much water they're using on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, I think will really help educate water customers on how much you're using, if they can conserve more, or just fully understanding how that translates to their water and sewer bills, which I think is really important. And then obviously as well, backwards compatibility is very important. As technology changes, we want to make sure that the system that's selected is compatible with technology as it evolves in the future. So there's the type of system that we're proposing will also can plug and play into the system. And as updates are rolled out, As new meter types come in, they all get to talk to each other, and we don't have to worry about what you spend money on today is going to be something that is obscure 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 years from now. So that's what we're ultimately looking at, well, as a solution for the city for 10 to 15 to 20 years. As part of this program and timeline, first would be the procurement of all the meters, the MTUs, and the data collectors. And the commissioners indicated that they'd be going through the cooperative bid immediately upon approval. Then the installation of all the meters in that program would be issued through a separate procurement, which I'll go through in a second. Those bids could be received and processed by summer. And then the installation program would kick off with public outreach, notices, and scheduling to begin in July and August, with installations beginning around the same time. And we're anticipating about a 12 to 18 to 20 month process and having some substantial completion by December 2023. Now, installation programs can be pretty invasive to the customers going into homes, businesses, and residences, especially with COVID-19. We have to have an eye on health and safety and protocols to make sure that everything is done in accordance with the high standards that the city has. So this bid package is put out through a Chapter 30, 39NM procurement. It includes the labor to install the meters and the MTUs. And knowing how important this is to implement, the DPW has indicated that they're going to be assisting with the implementation to help expedite the program. Now, the installer will be selected through a sealed bid process, and different criteria with the responsibility of them being able to handle this type of program will be written into the specifications. And there'll be minimum criteria necessary for a public outreach and scheduling program. And knowing how important public outreach is, we typically develop newspaper advertisements, web pages dedicated to the project, and education on who the company is that's going to be coming in and changing the meters out. We have phone lines, web pages, different mailers that go out to each customer, ways to identify and how they can schedule an appointment. We also have hours outside of normal business hours. So if people are not home working each day, they can schedule the appointments in the evening or on Saturdays or on the weekends. And we also will have protocols listed out for health and safety and for sensitivity to COVID and other immunocompromised people. And it also gives us the ability to go through, and as we identify and change out these meters, we have an accurate record process. So we'll be able to be going in to each of the customer locations. We'll be getting a full collection of data for their name, phone, email address, the property. We'll be able to update all the accounting system, make sure everything is recognized and up to date. We'll be providing and inputting the new meter types, the serial numbers for everything from the meters to the transmission units, taking and documenting through photographs. And also, not to mention, with the focus on lead service line replacements, we'll be able to identify existing service line size and material coming into each meter connection. So it's a great time to come in and see and document exactly what is there on the service side of the customer. And my final slide obviously is centered around cost, which is obviously very sensitive, but imperative that we move forward with this. The procurement for the meters through the cooperative bid, the MTUs, and the fixed network system is estimated to be about $8.85 million. The installation program, once bid, is estimated to come in around $6 million. Our engineering is around $190,000, and we're proposing contingency of about $1.5 million. As you know, and I mentioned, as you go into some of these residences where you haven't been to 10 to 15 years, you may find things that may need some additional work to get up to the city standards, and that's usually typically covered under contingency. So the total suggested meter program budget is around $16.55 million.
This will be coming before PF this coming Wednesday, and then finance, and that funding for this will be split between water and sewer, because the sewer billing is also measured through the water usage. So we'll be splitting the cost of this between the sewer reserve. And in speaking with Maureen, she is planning on using reserves to fund half of this, most of those being the sewer reserves, and then the other half will be bonded and charged to the water system.